Hello, welcome back to the boat shop. Today is the last day of July 2024, the 31st. And I'm going to do this kind of the same way we did before. I'm going to do a few clips that I shot throughout the week, and then I'll finish off a little review of where we stand currently today. It's Friday, midweek update again, and yeah, it's warmish out there again. Not a whole lot of fun working in the heat and humidity, but I'm working on, believe it or not, got the plywood cut, the fiberglass cut. Shortly here I'm gonna get that attached to the plywood, but I'm working on my very last piece. Yeah, and then we'll be done with the plywood. Yeah, so what's next? Well, I think I'll probably continue on this, getting this joint done along the bottom of the boat, simply because it's supposed to be hot. The extended forecast is showing upper 80s and lower 90s all the way through the extended forecast. So it's that time of year. We're talking late July and into August, and yeah, it's just miserable. And up there, I would love to start putting more deck on, getting the deck beams trimmed down and planed down and ready to receive the deck, and start putting some deck planking on up there, but or plywood actually. But it's just too hot up there to do that. So I think we'll probably work down here where it's a little cooler. See if we can't get this joint here closed up, and then probably start working on filling screw holes and sanding these joints down and putting some thickened epoxy and tape on those. I did receive my I've got a couple rolls of this stuff already, and this is fiberglass cloth tape. The nice thing about that is the edges are, I don't know what you want to call it, sealed or whatever, so you don't have a lot of fraying going on. So that stuff would be a little easier to apply. And then I got my peel ply in. So yeah, so once this piece is on, then we can start working on this seam down here, and some other stuff here. And what I'm doing when the weather is this hot, and like I complain about the heat all the time, but what I'm doing is I'll come out and I'll work for a while until I get hot and sweaty and miserable. Then I'll go inside and, I don't know, turn the TV on or get some lunch or whatever, whatever the case is. Cool down, then come back out and work for a bit again. While it's not a really efficient way to get things done, it certainly is, better than nothing. I mean, you're getting work done at least, so it's getting some progress done. I thought these here were kind of cool, kind of like modern art or something, don't you think? Yeah? No? Not modern art? Okay. I'll throw them away then. I did manage to get these drilled out, so now we can actually get our lag bolts in there. And I think, oh yeah, and I cut you can see down in there, I cut that cutlass bearing that I'm going to mount in there. I cut that in half. So that's a little too much room, even when this compression ring doohickey thing is in there. There's still about 3 inches there, and I only need about an inch, or a little over an inch maybe, for the packing. So that's too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to manufacture something at some point similar to this piece here that slides down in there, that will rest up against the top, that end of the cutlass bearing, and then the packing will be kind of compressed in between those two parts. The reason I did it that way is simply I could have made it an inch or inch and a half longer, but then I would have had a short little stub of a bearing left that wouldn't have been useful for anything. So this way I can use the half of the bearing, then I've got another half a bearing for in the future if I need it. Now the deal with this is, do I really need this bearing in here? This cutlass bearing up on the forward end of the, probably not. I don't think I would have any problems. The guys I talked to did not think I would have any problems with the length of the shaft, but it just seemed to me that the way this bearing housing was designed, or this stuffing box was designed, that it was made to have a bearing you know, a cutlass bearing type bearing put in there, sleeve bearing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give us just a little bit more support back at, you know, at that end of the boat. So we've still got a long run. You know, it's still 11 feet or whatever it is from there to the stuffing box, but yeah, it'll just give us a little more support and shouldn't hurt anything. So that's about ready to go. This stuff I need to put my set screws in there, and I'm going to just put a couple of set screws in there. And I was going through my tap and dies, and I don't know, my tap and dies, I've got a bunch of newer ones, but they're all bigger stuff. So I want to buy myself a set, and it's an Irwin set, which isn't, where did I go with it? Here it is. Isn't top of the line, but it's probably better quality than some of the sets that I've got. So I bought a new set of tap and dies, and at least in the small sizes. Like I said, in the bigger sizes, I've got pretty much everything. Then I bought a pair of these. These are tap holders that go into a socket, into a regular, you know, 3/8 inch socket ratchet. Or I suppose you could impact drive them in too, or drive them in. Oh, and here's something else I got too. This is a 30-gallon plastic drum. I was going to put a 55-gallon drum up in the bow, but I didn't need that big a drum for my chain, so I decided to go this 30-gallon drum, which is big enough for, you know, 240 feet of 1/2 inch chain or thereabouts, and it'll save me a little room up there in the bow, so I can, you know, hang fenders and whatnot, some lines and, you know, docking lines and whatnot up in that forepeak area. So I got that in, I got my epoxy in, I got my new epoxy in, and I got the peel ply and another roll of that 6-inch fiberglass tape. So yeah, we're good to go. We should be finishing this up in a couple of days, the plywood up in a couple of days, and like I said, then I'll probably start working on this seam over here, this bottom seam over here, and yeah, it's going to take a couple layers here. I was going to put 10 ounce over top of this, and I hit this with a sander just real quickly. I don't know how fussy I'm going to get on this. I think what we'll probably do is just hit it with a sander to get any rough edges off, but if we use the peel ply, that should help a lot too. But hit it with the sander to get any rough edges off. Of course, the 10 ounce that goes over here will extend over just a little bit, be a little wider, probably 8 or 9 inches wide. So that will create a little bit of a taper, but then we'll just roughly sand it, and then probably use some of that epoxy based filler compound. It's stuff that Total Boat sells, that fairing compound, to kind of smooth it off a little bit, and we're not going to get too fussy, especially below the water line. You know, you're generally not going to see that anyway. So, but yeah, that's going to be the next job. There's another quick little thing I wanted to show you here before I threw these away. These are a couple pieces of wood that I've had in a bucket of water. Actually, it's my drain water for my sink back there. And so for the past 9-10 months, whatever it's been, I've had these pieces of wood floating in that bucket. Well, floating, they're pretty much submerged. But this piece was just a piece of the 1/2 inch plywood, and it was has fiberglass coating on it. And as you can see, there's absolutely no delamination, no peeling, no issues with the fiberglass adhesion to the wood at all. And then the wood itself looks pretty good too. I don't see any issues with the plywood being submerged for nearly a year. Yeah, so that's good. And this piece was a piece of that plywood glued to a Douglas fir 2x2 here, and I just shot a little glue on there, scraped off the excess, put a couple screws in, and I took the screws out. So this has been in the water for all that time with the screws out, and just the glue glue holding that joint together, and it's doing a pretty good job of holding on. I don't know if I can break it. There, we broke it. But as you can see, oh, there is a screw in there yet. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, you can see the glue sealed it up quite well. Thought I pulled those screws out of there. Okay, hold on a second. Let me pull those screws out and take a look at it. Alright, I'm going to see if I can get this separated. I'm going to use a nasty old chisel that isn't really sharp. And it came off. Okay, so that was a test of that PL Premium, which, honestly, not as impressed with it as I thought I was going to be. Did a good job of protecting it. I mean, sealing it as a bedding compound, but perhaps not as good a job at gluing the pieces together as I'd hoped for. There is some peeling of the wood fibers in here, over a portion of it at least. Yeah, I don't know. Epoxy would have done a better job. Most definitely. Yeah, I don't know what to think. Maybe not quite use as much of that PL, and well, this is an underwater situation, and of course it had the opportunities to dry out occasionally, but the vast majority of the time it would have been underwater. So yeah, not a perfect deal there, but okay. Anyway, that was the test I wanted to do, and now we know a little bit more. Alright, I just wanted to show you something here. The momentous occasion of the last piece of plywood on the hull going in. And there we've got it. I just finished, oops, need a couple more screws in there yet. Just finished putting this piece on, and you can see all the squeeze out. I use epoxy on all of the critical edges, you know, like inside there on the keel to hull joint, and then up here on the chine I use epoxy, and then I use epoxy up on the deck to hull side up there. And then this down here I'm using for in the field basically, I'm using that PL Premium, which after my little test I'm kind of a little skeptical on now, but of course with all these screws and it should be a dry hull. I shouldn't have issues with water standing and, you know, on the inside surface, well, or the outside either, because it's going to be all covered in fiberglass and epoxy. But yeah, so I just wanted to document that. I get a couple more screws in here, and then I'll get this cleaned up. Alright, so another quick midweek update here. I wanted to talk about what I'm doing here now, or what the plan is here for this this seam here, or this joint. What I did initially here, and I think I had this in the last video, I put a fillet in there, and then I put some 1708, 6-inch chunk of 1708 in there, and then I let it cure. I didn't have any peel ply at the time, so I had to let it cure and sand it a little bit, and then I put a layer of 8-ounce over top of it, or 10-ounce rather, 10-ounce fabric, just straight E-glass. and then I put the peel ply over that, and that left me with a pretty nice surface. Yeah, a couple little dry spots, but not hollowed out or anything. So yeah, not bad. So then the next one I did this all in one layup. I used a piece of plastic, and I laid my cloth out on here, my 10-ounce cloth, and I cut that 8 inches wide, laid that on there, wet it out, and then I put my 1708, which is 6 inches wide, laid that on top, wet it out, wet out the wood here, the boat, or got the fillet in there, and then wet out with just liquid epoxy. And then I put that up there, the two pieces together, and then I put the peel ply, which is 10 inches wide, I put that on over top of everything, and then kind of worked it in. And I actually found, I thought maybe a fin roller would work all right here, and it probably would on larger, flatter areas, but in here with this fillet here in the middle and whatnot, I think it worked better just to use my fingers, a gloved hand, to work this in. And it seems to be working all right. Now I went with 3.5 foot lengths here. The reason for 3.5 feet is I was going to go 4 feet, but I really didn't want joints laying on top of joints. You know, here I didn't really want this laying here. So I figured 3.5 feet would offset those joints a little bit and be a handleable size. Anything bigger than 3.5 or 4 feet would be a little too long and too troublesome to try to handle for one person. So yeah, this will require a little bit of finishing. We'll have to sand here in these joints and put a little filler in. But I don't think, being this is under the water line, I don't think it's going to take just a massive amount of filling and sanding and just too terrible much work to get it acceptable. So yeah, I'm cutting pieces of this plastic, and interestingly enough, once the epoxy fully cures in this plastic, I can generally fold it over the edge of something in the epoxy, then falls right off this plastic. I, at least for a time or two, can reuse these pieces of plastic, and of course I got two sides to them too, so I'm not constantly having to cut new plastic. Now I do have a 6 inch or a 8 inch wide roll of 6-ounce e-glass coming in, so I won't have to cut this stuff into strips. And when you cut your e-glass like this, it leaves a lot of fuzzies on the edges, which is kind of a pain to work with. But yeah, so I ordered a roll of it, which I think is going to have edges that are finished a little better. This 1708 glass, it holds together a little bit better, so I don't think that's an issue. And it's the first piece on it, it gets covered up by everything else, so I don't really think that's an issue, just cutting strips off my big roll of 1708. But am I liking the peel ply? Yeah, I think so. I think it's doing a pretty nice job. You got an edge here where that 1708 lets off, and another little edge where the 10-ounce drops off. That 6-ounce that I got coming will probably be a little bit better in that respect. Of course, it's not quite as heavy either, but yeah. So I think I'm just going to keep on working. Of course, I've got to sand the keel there and the hull to prep it for the fiberglass, and then of course I have to fill these screw holes all down along there when I'm doing it. And so I was debating whether I should just continue on, you know, going up the sides here right away, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to wait with this. Just get we'll have to fill in the first 4 inches here, of course, but yeah, that won't be such a big deal. So yeah, another process that's going to take a while. It won't be horrible, but the fact that it's under the boat is horrible. But getting the whole boat done is going to be a lot of work. But this is probably the most difficult one to get at, and the one that needs the most reinforcement, you know, putting the 1708 in there. The rest of this stuff is just going to get, like I said, I'm going to ream these out just a little bit with probably a flap disc sander. Get that cleaned up, and then put a little bit of thickened epoxy in there, put tape right over it and probably put peel ply on it too. I ordered some more peel ply, so yeah, I liked it well enough that we're going to order some more. I have used it in the past, but it's been a long time, and the things that I was doing in the past, the fiberglass, the peel ply, wasn't really real practical. But working on flatter, holy cow, yeah. Working on flatter surfaces, the peel ply is gonna be handy for that, because it's gonna eliminate a lot of sanding. It takes the aiming blush off. You don't have an aiming blush. It's just got a, you know, that fine texture of that fabric, that polyester fabric. So it's, I mean, it's ready for priming essentially, which is, yeah, good thing. It will get sanded a little bit, but essentially it is ready for priming. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about the process that I'm going to go through on that, and what I'm doing here. And could a guy do longer pieces, or even do, you know, half the boat or a third of the boat in one shot? Yeah, you could. If you had a couple extra sets of hands here, you certainly could. You'd probably need somebody mixing epoxy and a couple people putting it up on the boat, and, you know, one person mixing epoxy, maybe painting it on, and a couple other people saturating cloth and putting it on, and it would go pretty quick with a few people here. But again, working by myself, it's, yeah, you have to keep it within practical limits. It makes more work of it because you got more seams to contend with, but yeah, such is life. So that's where we stand today. I got my exhaust hose in, my wet exhaust hose in, so that can continue. The work on the exhaust can continue. And I've been working on the joint here, the keel to hull joint. Got several more pieces in there, and it's going all right. It's not the most fun place to work, but it's not too bad. Yeah, it's and I have found that I can actually reach it now with that that chair there, so I can just kind of slide that work stool along the cradle here and get up in there. But of course I'm having to sand the keel. I'm using some aggressive, like 40 grit, 36 grit, maybe even paper on a 5-inch sander here, and just getting that nice and cleaned up and roughened up before I put the epoxy on. And then I'm going up in any cracks and cleaning them out a little bit with this coarse rasp on the multi-tool, you know, going up in there to prep that area for epoxy too. You know, this crack up in here and up in here, when we're moving up on seams there, getting those cleaned up and roughened and ready for epoxy. So yeah, it's ungodly hot and humid out again. At least there's a bit of air moving today, but it's still pretty miserable. So I will probably not do anything on the boat here until this afternoon, or rather evening. I ordered a roll of tape, of fiberglass, 8-inch wide fiberglass tape, and that is supposed to be delivered today. So I might just wait until that comes in too, so I don't have to work with these frazzly pieces on the edge. We'll see about that. But yeah, this is going all right, and it shouldn't take too long to at least to get the first side done here. We should get this done in a week or so. But before I can finish up, I also need to get the fiberglass on this area up here. So I need to do a little bit more grinding and sanding to get this area here prepared, get it smoothed out and contoured the way I want it. And then this will be glassed. This will all be glassed in up to here. And this actually needs the 10-ounce fabric put on it too. Haven't got that done yet. So before I can finish that there, this stuff up here needs to be done too. So that'll take an extra couple days to get that done, I'm sure, or several days maybe. But yeah, this is going all right. So not too concerned about that. When I get ready to start doing this side, of course all this stuff in here is going to have to come out. And in here, I've got these ready to go. And I put a couple set screws in here, one on either side. Didn't have just a whole lot of material. These are fairly long set screws, but this material's, I don't know, maybe 3/8 of an inch thick inside there. This material here. So I got a bit of the set screws sticking out, but I don't really think that's going to be an issue. But that's just to keep that cutlass bearing from rotating in there. And yeah, someday I'm going to have to climb up into the boat and start working up in there to get that ready to receive this bearing housing here. I've been putting this fabric on in a couple different ways. I've tried I wet it out on a piece of plastic. I put the first piece down. I've tried just taking the 1708, peeling that off and applying it, and then doing the 10-ounce fabric and putting it on the plastic, wetting it out, peeling it off and putting it on. And I've also tried doing it all at once, putting the two pieces on at the same time. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot different one way or the other, so I don't know how a guy goes about that, if there's a better way or not, but either way it seems to work fine. The one thing I'm running into, like here, when I did this yesterday, I put two lengths on here, put this first piece on, and then I actually had to let it cure enough to peel back the peel ply just a little bit to put the second piece on. I probably should have left an inch or so, you know, not put peel ply on there, but I didn't, so I had to wait long enough for this. Fortunately, it's warm enough that the epoxy cures quick enough that I didn't have to wait too terrible long, but waited, you know, 4 hours or whatever to put the next piece on. But I think maybe tonight when I go to do this, I'll get this sanded and prepped here, and I think maybe I'll go ahead and try to do the whole two pieces, the whole 7 feet in one run. Yeah, hopefully my epoxy doesn't kick before I get it all on there. I don't know, I might have to mix it in 2 batches too. I don't know, we'll see, but that way I don't have to worry about yeah, the joint and whatnot there, if it's all done at the same time. But yeah, that's where we stand today. I can't think of anything else I got going on that I really need to report. So yeah, we'll talk to you later.